Hey everyone, Brian Zane here with another classic pay-per-view review as nominated by my Patreon backers. You know, it's been quite a while since I've done a TNA pay-per-view on this series, so I wanted to correct that this week. So this time, I'm going to be looking at
Unbreakable, they alive, damn it, it's a miracle.
It is the 9th pay-per-view that TNA had done since stopping the weekly pay-per-view format and going the more traditional route in scheduling, actually being on cable television. It's the only Unbreakable event in company history, and it's widely regarded to be one of the best pay-per-views the company has ever done. And it features arguably the best match in company history between AJ Styles, Samoa Joe, and Christopher Daniels. It's the only TNA match to have ever received a 5-star rating from Dave Meltzer, so take that for what you will. Just under 800 folks in the Impact Zone for this show. The show earned somewhere between 10 to 15,000 pay-per-view buys. The specific number is hard to get. You know, it's not amazing numbers, but when you consider that that the company is only about 3 years old at this point, and they're still just only recently getting into the monthly pay-per-view format, it's not that bad, so it can be forgiven. Mike Tenay and Don West are on commentary here for this show, and let's start off with the pre-show. The DVD copy that I have of this show actually has the free pre-show that happens before the actual pay-per-view, and what a refreshing change of pace after several years of watching all these kickoff matches in WWE where there's no advancement of storyline beyond people reading Twitter answers. You actually have like things that are happening in the story that play into what happened in the main show. Let's begin with this first match here, Cassidy Riley versus Jerelle Clark. Riley is a recent follower of Raven. He's kind of mimicking his look and everything. He mimics everything Raven does, according to commentary, like, you know, Japanese arm drags and handstand springboard back elbows, those sort of things. Before the match gets anywhere, Monty Brown, the alpha male, interrupts the match and he beats up Riley, which causes a disqualification finish. I guess I would give this a half-star, but I'm not going to count the pre-show matches in my overall grade, so really it's kind of irrelevant. He grabs the mic and he renames this ring the Serengeti, and then Riley gets in his face and Brown hits the pounce period on him. He says he will challenge the winner of the Raven Rhino match for the NWA title, but then the chosen one, Jeff Jarrett, interrupts, and he's in his gear even though he doesn't have a match scheduled for this evening. He says that Monty owes him for helping out his career, so he should be first in line. Of course, Monty Brown was a member of Planet Jarrett and only recently split apart from that. Then in comes Kip James, Brown's tag team partner for the night, who is still in the boat of Jeff Jarrett here. He tries to keep the peace between the two of them. Then Jeff Hardy interrupts, and Hardy goes right for Jarrett, and the two have a scuffle. As Jarrett attacks Hardy with Don West's chair, I'm almost certain that Dixie Carter's at ringside and gets right in his face. I can't really tell for sure. This is, of course, before she was an on-air personality, obviously. Lots of people who claim to deserve a shot at the title, and that will play into a lot of what happens in the main show later on. Our next match in the pre-show is Shark Boy versus Mikey Bat. This is back before Shark Boy did a Steve Austin impersonation gimmick, but he still had quite a cult following at this point. I'm pretty sure my first exposure to Shark Boy was several years before this, when MTV ran a documentary called True Life, I'm a Professional Wrestler. That's the first time I ever saw Shark Boy, and so I was very happy to see that he got work getting in some mainstream wrestling here with TNA at this time. It's a pretty basic match. Shark Boy pulls kind of Eddie Guerrero where he feigns a groin injury on the turnbuckle, which distracts Bats, allows Shark Boy to hit the Dead Sea Drop to win. I'm going to give this 1 star to 4, but again, this score is kind of not being factored into the overall grade. So that's it for the pre-show, and while this match wasn't really doing anything for the storyline itself, the previous segment that I mentioned with Monty Brown and Billy Gunn and Jeff Jarrett and Jeff Hardy, that I think was great. It's so refreshing to see like actual storyline advancement that's like, it teases things for the main show and it makes you kind of want to buy, you know, the pay-per-view. What a novel concept. We don't see that anymore in the current structure for WWE, for example. And of course, you know, I'm harkening back to the days of Sunday Night Heat, the Sunday, the hour before a pay-per-view began, where you could see like the pay-per-view set and get a preview of what it was going to look like and everything. That was always kind of cool. Now those days are gone, but it's cool to look back at this pre-show here and say, oh, you know, back there was a time period when people still did this on pre-shows. The opening package for this pay-per-view has this bad Howard Cosell impersonation while the old Monday Night Football theme plays in the background. Lots of football puns in the copy. It's especially relevant because the season for the NFL was just kicking off around that time.
I'm not talking about football. I'm talking about TNA wrestling on pay-per-view. Ladies and gentlemen, all my rowdy, rambunctious friends are here tonight.
I always find it tacky, and it's not just a TNA thing, it's like a WWE thing as well. I hate when wrestling parodies the more popular thing because it's always kind of like a riding on the coattails of it, and it's always kind of like, it makes it seem lesser than. It's like whenever TNA would like rip off WWE stuff, that made it look so Bush League. And you know, when WWE, for example, when they tried to parody, you know, Billionaire Ted and they had the Huckster and the Nacho Man, that's the vibe I got from that as well. Just so tacky where they're trying to parody and make fun of, or otherwise, you know, remind people of the more successful thing that they are parodying. Opening match is a six-man tag as the Diamonds in the Rough of Elix skipper David Young and their coach Simon Diamond take on the 3 Live Crew, B.G. James, better known as Road Dogg, aka the man who's killing SmackDown, Conan, and Ron the Truth Killings, former NWA World Champion. Skipper and Young are a bit of a role here. They've been coached by Simon Diamond for the last couple of months. They were formed, the Diamonds in the Rough, in June of 2005, and they've actually stuck around until 2007, which surprised me. 3 Live Crew, of course, is one of the more popular stables, one of the more memorable stables in TNA history. They formed several years ago. 3 Live Crew back together, though, after a brief tiff. There was a lot of inner turmoil in the group when Kip James debuted for the company and tried to drive a wedge between them. But ever since the Chris Candido Memorial Tournament, which I will get to in a little bit in this review, they are cool once again. It's a fun little match, lots of quick tags, lots of time for everyone to impress. Conan gets the hot tag and just cleans house. I never knew that part of his finish involved throwing a shoe at someone.
Who throws a shoe? Honestly.
But sure enough, that's what happens. He throws it at Young's stomach and he sells it like death. A kick, a K factor, not an X factor, a K factor, and Conan gets the pinfall and the Crew win for the day. I'm going to give it 1.5 stars. It was a hot little opener, but other than that, nothing really special. You know, back in my last classic review of Canadian Stampede, I talked for a bit about the uniqueness of the special exhibition match between the great Sasuke and Taka Michinoku. How cool I thought it was the company was allowing this anomaly of a match to happen, featuring a guy who wasn't contracted, wasn't signed to any kind of long-term deal. This next match here at Unbreakable, to me, I see a lot of parallels between this match and the one from Stampede. It's Austin Aries versus Roderick Strong. Look at the baby face of Roderick Strong. I just want to pinch those cheeks. TNA at this time was giving a lot of power and voice to its fans, and I think this right here is emblematic of why, even to this day, TNA Impact Wrestling has such a dedicated, loyal fan base. You know, back in July of 2005, they had a poll asking fans to pick Christopher Daniels' opponent for the X Division title at Sacrifice, and Aries won in a landslide, and the other guys on the poll were Strong, Jay Lethal, and Matt Sydal. None of these guys were contracted with TNA by this point. They were actually part of Ring of Honor. This is a crazy time in wrestling history when TNA and Ring of Honor actually had a bit of a working relationship until TNA said, no, exclusive contracts only. So yeah, the company's really patting themselves on the back, I think rightfully so, for giving this platform, showcasing all this young independent talent that wasn't being seen on a huge scale. And to their credit, they were certainly giving more of a rub to these guys than WWE was at the time. And like I said, it's very comparable to like the Sasuke Taka match, where it's like, hey, here are these guys you might not be familiar with. Here's a special attraction match we're going to show, and you can see what they do. And of course, Aries and Strong at this point are stablemates in Ring of Honor. They're part of Generation Next. Strong is even wearing his Gen Next trunks for the match. And this one was great. One of the best ones of the night. You can tell that these guys were just given the instruction of, okay guys, just go out there and give them a show. And that's exactly what they did. Strong catching a crossbody into a backbreaker, then just throws Aries into the corner, and the bump does not look good. Strong keeps working the back. Even back then, he had the nickname of the Messiah of the Backbreaker, which is something they're carrying on even today in NXT. So that's amazing that that nickname is stuck for so long. It's a very competitive, very hard-hitting match. Aries hits the 450 splash to win the whole thing. 3 stars out of 4 for me. Great look at the future stars of wrestling, people who are still working on a high full-time level today. Austin Aries, of course, was only recently with WWE until he left last year, but he's still working strong for himself in the independents and in Impact, the champion of everything. What a great gimmick Austin Aries has, by the way. Hey, my gimmick is I win all the belts where I work, so can I have your belt? Thanks, that's awesome. Up next, some tag team action as Kip James and Monty Brown take on Lance, Hoyt, and Apolo, not to be confused with those few weeks when Apollo Crews didn't have a last name. Let's talk about Brown for a second, because in the few times I watched TNA around this time, I was always impressed with Monty Brown. I was always kind of, captivated by what he did, especially with his promos. Even though in the ring he was kind of green, his personality and his presence was just on this other level compared to so many other people in TNA. He carried himself like a star, and I think, I really think he got a kind of a raw deal when he went to WWE and did the thing with ECW as Marcus Corvon. I think he didn't really get a chance to show what he could do as a personality when he was in the revived ECW. But man, what a kick-ass theme. Apolo is a Puerto Rican wrestler who at this point is in the midst of his third stint in the company. He had a bit of an on and off relationship with them over the years. He had been teaming with Sonny Siaki at this point, but Siaki got hurt, so Lance Hoyt is filling in for him. Hoyt, of course, would go on to become the future Vance Archer in WWE, and to this day is one of the only male wrestlers I've ever seen with a tramp stamp. Lots of tension between James and Monty Brown. They're the story in this matchup because Kip doesn't think that Monty's head's in the game. He's upset that Monty has left Planet Jarrett and is going too hard after Jarrett and the whole world title thing. He basically thinks he should wait in line more. Hoyt, I will say, this guy brought the whole match down. Hoyt looks so bad in this match. His Irish whips are the absolute worst, especially when it's going to get countered into something else. He just looks lost at times, but at the same time, though, he's stupid over. Like, people love Lance Hoyt at this point in TNA, even though I think he wrestles kind of like dog shit. He does hit a nice-looking moonsault on Kip, though, in this match. Brown props Apolo up, and gosh, I wonder where this is going to go. Kip kicks Monty off the apron. I cannot help laughing at Kip's reaction after this.
Jeez, I'm kidding you!
But that miscommunication does not cost them the match. Brown does get up to rescue James, hits the pounce on Apolo to win the match. I'm going to give this one star out of 4. It did a lot more to build the tension between James and Brown, but that was really all this match. That's the only purpose this match served. I think Hoyt's suckage kind of brought this match down for me and gave it a worse grade than I would have if he didn't suck so bad. Some X Division action up next as Chris Sabin takes on Petey Williams from Team Canada. Maple Leaf Muscle, they call him. It's a return to their feud from 2004 when they fought over Petey's X Division championship. Sabin was supposed to wrestle Shocker from AAA on this night, but AAA made Shocker's travel schedule too difficult for him to make to Orlando in time, so Williams was a replacement. It's not the first or the last time we'll hear stories about AAA screwing over other promotions in terms of like their talent on show dates. It's a very fast-paced match between these two. There are flips, there are dips, there are snips. Williams showing some versatility here from his high-flying stuff, but working holds, including the sharpshooter, which I believe is legally required for every Canadian wrestler to have in their back pocket, not necessarily use in a match, but to at least know how to apply it. Sabin has Williams up on his shoulders and does some sort of a buckle bomb or razor's edge into the corner, and it looks bad, just like the Roderick Strong Austin Aries match. Why do all these corner bumps look so gnarly and painful? Why is it that only now in the last few years have you heard about the dangers of the buckle bomb when you just watched this shit from 2005 and it looks very dangerous? I really enjoyed this finish here. Again, another highly competitive X Division match, really fun to watch. I like the finish because, the whole cradle shock as counter to the Destroyer, that was the crux of their whole feud the previous year, so I'm glad they brought it back here. And ultimately, Williams losing here doesn't hurt him because it was a stopgap. It was a last-minute replacement because Sabin's opponent, originally his opponent, was not there. Right after the match, Matt Bentley, a former X Division champion and a former co-champ with AJ Styles, and also a cousin of Shawn Michaels, shows up and he super kicks Chris Sabin. He cuts a promo where he declares he wants to challenge the two men to an Ultimate X match at Bound for Glory next month, the match that he won the first version of. He then super kicks Williams to end the segment, and Petey Williams would go on to win that Ultimate X match, by the way. Now it's time for some hardcore action as Abyss, accompanied by Father James Mitchell, takes on the homicidal, suicidal, death-defying Sabu. This feud began a couple of months earlier, shortly after Sabu returned to TNA to help out Raven in a match. Mitchell cuts a promo after his introduction to say that it'll now be a no disqualification match. I'm guessing they made the pitch to Larry Zbyszko before the match, or now they just do whatever they want, lol TNA. Abyss gets the advantage early on. Sabu gets a great comeback when he does a leaping clothesline over the ropes to the outside. Sabu gets a table and one of the legs instantly breaks. Lol Sabu. Sabu with a springboard tornado DDT after jumping off a chair, and he didn't even botch it. It's a miracle. Sabu goes for an attack off the chair, but Abyss kicks it out of the way and suplexes him over the ropes and through the tables on the outside. Sabu kicks out and mounts a comeback with the chair. And by the way, I'm breezing through these highlights right now, but I mean, this match is very entertaining to watch. There's a lot of big bumps, big moves, big spills in this match you would come to expect from two hard-hitting guys like this. Sabu Sabu does the chair leg drop off the top rope and onto Abyss through the table, but I think Sabu took maybe 90% of that table bump. Sabu covers and Mitchell puts Abyss's foot on the ropes to make the save. Hey, it's no DQ. Sabu goes for Mitchell, Abyss grabs him and hits the shock treatment, and then it's thumbtacks time. Now, like I said, I didn't watch a ton of TNA back in 05, but I watched enough to know that Abyss's success rate with the thumbtacks was at about 5%, so I was going to see if he could up his average on this night. And he does, because Sabu goes for another springboard DDT, but Abyss catches him, hits the black hole slam onto the tacks, looks absolutely brutal. Abyss makes the cover and wins the matchup. I'm going to give it 2.5 stars out of 4. Big old car crash of a match. Relatively botch-free for Sabu, but it's not perfect. The finish did legit surprise me, because like I said, I always assume that when Abyss brings up the thumbtacks, he's the one taking the bump in him, but on this night, he proved me wrong. So that was very refreshing. Up next, the charismatic enigma Jeff Hardy makes his return to a TNA ring for the first time in 4 months against Team Canada's Bobby Roode. Crazy to think that in 2005, Hardy and Roode are in the same company, and now in 2018, they're still in the same company, but it's a different company, not on the same brands anymore. They're kind of like ships passing in the night. At the time of this recording, Roode is on Raw, Jeff is on SmackDown, but just crazy to see where wrestling takes you. Hardy looks very gassed in this matchup as it goes on. He looks very blown up. That's what taking 4 months off will do to you, I guess. Hardy goes up top, but then Petey Williams interferes and crotches Jeff. Jeff dives off the top rope onto Williams and Roode on the outside. As the referee is distracted, Jeff Jarrett comes out, strikes Hardy from behind with one of Team Canada's hockey sticks. Roode makes the cover and wins. I'm going to give this one 1.5 stars. It's a pretty standard match. Nothing really exciting or nothing to write home about with this matchup here. A tad overbooked. Jeff Hardy had some moments of brilliance here, but overall he did not look as good as he could have. He would be added to the feud with Abyss and Sabu later on, with Rhino thrown in for good measure, and so of course that would be chaotic. It's a 4-way elimination match for the NWA tag titles as the Naturals, Chase Steven and Andy Douglas, who are accompanied to the ring by Jimmy Hart, versus Team Canada, A1 and Eric Young, versus America's Most Wanted, Chris Harris and James Storm, versus Alex Shelley and his partner, to be determined. The Naturals and AMW, they had been rivals in the past, both trading back and forth the NWA tag titles. They joined forces out of a mutual hatred of Team Canada, and so they fought at Sacrifice in an 8-man tag team match. That brief partnership did fall apart almost immediately, and so Alex Shelley was one half of the winners of the Chris Candido Memorial Tournament, which was held the previous month. Candido had died earlier in the year due to complications from a surgery to repair his broken ankle that he suffered at Lockdown. The tournament was announced for August. They had planned on making an annual event. This was the only tournament they ever did, though. Alex Shelley and Sean Waltman, better known as X-Pac, they won the tournament, and so they earned the 4th spot in this tag team title match. However, Shelley is by himself here because Sean Waltman, he didn't no-show. He showed up very late, was not ready to wrestle, and so they unbooked him, and he was not using the company again until the following year. So it's a big no-no that Waltman did here. So who would be Shelley's partner in this? Will he go it alone? We will see. Candido's family is at ringside for this matchup. You get his dad, his brother, and a family friend of theirs. Chris's brother Johnny jumps the rail in the middle of the match and inserts himself into the match as Shelley's partner, and he's in there for all 30 seconds, falling out of his pants until he gets eliminated. So much of that feel-good story. AMW's next to go after Chris Harris is hit from behind with the dreaded hockey stick. Eric Young rolls Harris up to eliminate him. We're now down to the Naturals and Team Canada as the final two, and what a disgusting, despicable lack of respect that Eric What's-His-Name shows as he shoves Jimmy Hart to the ground as he's checking on his boys. Very good work here between the final 3 teams overall, but of course down here between Canada and the Naturals, very good stuff here. Team Canada goes for a possible Doomsday Device looking move, but Jimmy Hart hops up and shoves Eric Young off the top rope. Natural disaster. The Naturals retain the titles. I'm going to give this one 2.5 stars. I think the match really picked up once Shelley and Johnny Candido got eliminated, and actually the back of the DVD cover actually spoils who replaces Sean Waltman in this match, even though he's a late entry. The story was kind of a letdown because I believe it was meant to be a feel-good story to have them win the tournament and then possibly go on to win the titles, but that story got kiboshed due to Waltman showing up late. But very enjoyable stuff once we got past that. In our semi-main event, we've got the NWA World title on the line as Raven defends against the Man-Beast Rhino. It's being held under Raven's rules, which means there are no rules. Back in June, Raven won the championship from Jeff Jarrett in the King of the Mountain match, became a world champion for the first time since the mid-90s in ECW. And from day one, when he came to TNA after his release from WWE, DDT, he said, I'm going to be the next NWA champion, and he followed through on it, so good for him. Rhino had aligned himself with Jeff Jarrett, and we had a tag team match between the two of them versus Raven and Jeff Hardy, where if Jarrett pinned Raven, he would get a title shot, but Rhino pins Raven instead to become the #1 contender, and Jarrett does not like that. And this is just a big old hardcore war. Things start off fast and furious with the weapons, fans chanting ECW, also we want pizza when Raven uses the pizza cutter on Rhino, but then Rhino fights back and gets Raven to bleed. Like I said, this is a brutal hardcore match using so many weapons in a variety of creative ways at times. Like the pizza cutter was kind of out there. Here comes a staple gun later on. Cassidy, Riley, who we saw in the pre-show, tries to intervene on Raven's behalf, but accidentally costs him a possible win. Raven powerbombs Rhino into a ladder, bending it in half. Does not look pretty. Jarrett comes in once again. Ooh, that dirty no good Nick tries to interfere, but Jeff Hardy cuts him off. Raven hits Jarrett, then Rhino with the DDT, wins the match, and retains the World Championship. I'm going to give this one 3 stars out of 4. A really fun, physical, hardcore match. Well, fun for me watching it, probably not fun for them. It really played to both guys' strengths here. And the finish didn't take away too much from the action. It, like I said, kind of overbooked with all these people coming in, but I think it made sense with the story and played into it. It helped enhance the finish instead of distracting and taking away. Main event time, the triple threat match for the X Division Championship as the Fallen Angel Christopher Daniels defends against Samoa Joe and the phenomenal AJ Styles. Daniels is the longest reigning X Division champion at the time of this show. He had the belt for about 6 months at this point. Samoa Joe, he's on a tear in TNA in the midst of his ungodly unbeaten streak as he beat AJ Styles to win the Super X Cup at Sacrifice to become #1 contender for Daniels' title. But Daniels did play a role in the outcome of that matchup. He basically interfered and cost Styles the match, so Larry Zbyszko, who was the authority figure at the time, made it a triple threat match. And this thing is just a very fast-paced action from the get-go. One of my favorite spots in this match is so simple. Joe and Styles take turns kicking Daniels until he gets him.
Samoa don't working with anybody. Daniels gets right back up on his feet and he
We get some ridiculous spots in this match. Each man takes turns just defying gravity and doing crazy shit, including AJ hitting a springboard shooting star, the shooting Styles press onto Daniels and Joe on the outside. A crazy fast pace in this match. Everyone is getting a chance to shine. This match, just you could tell, it was ahead of its time. It really set the bar, set the standard for like triple threat matches and multi-mans for pretty much up until now. You watch wrestling matches today, you watch guys like Seth Rollins and AJ Styles and all those people and Samoa Joe, and the stuff they do now, it's the stuff they were doing then, and back then it was just absolutely revolutionary. Now it's still fun to watch, but the impact, pardon the pun, is not quite as big now as it was then, because this was like a whole other level of competition what these guys were doing. Daniels and AJ each dodge a flying move, Joe with a twisting dive onto them. West and Tenay are just screaming nonstop at this point. They're known for screaming a lot during shows, but now they're just like, they're done. They're just like, go, blah! Joe grabs the title belt and gets distracted by the referee. Daniels kicks it into Joe's head, hits the BME, best moonsault ever, onto Styles. The match ends when Styles hits the Styles Clash on Daniels, but Joe breaks up the pinfall. Joe goes for a running attack, but he eats shit. Daniels goes for Angel's Wings, but AJ counters with a roll-up and pins Daniels for 3. AJ Styles wins the X Division Championship for the 5th time. And of course, I gotta give it the maximum, 4 stars out of 4. This match was awesome. It's one of the best, if not the best match in TNA history. Believe what people tell you. I mean, this match changed the game for TNA. It put them on the map. It put all 3 guys on the map as huge players. Everyone kind of, like, the hardcore fans knew who these guys were before Unbreakable. But then after this match, they were just kind of household names among wrestling fans. And it's one of the most exciting matches of the modern era of the last, 15 or so years you will ever see. This would lead to more matches between all 3 guys for pretty much the rest of their respective times in TNA. Like, these guys were just kind of star-crossed. It's kind of like the I have a feeling you and I will be fighting forever sort of thing. The Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn thing today. That's what we had with Joe and Daniels and Styles. They were always in each other's stuff for years and years up to this point, including the NWA World title later on when Styles was champion, and for well beyond that as well. So there you go. I mean, I need a cigarette after watching that match. My final grade for TNA Unbreakable is a B+ grade. This is a really fun show, almost from top to bottom, except for, the Hoyt and Apolo versus James and Brown match, which kind of sucked, and Bobby Roode versus Jeff Hardy, which wasn't that great. I think pretty much every other match on the show proper, not including pre-show, really delivered. I think, it was a great blend of styles. You had your high flying, you had your hardcore stuff, you've got your technical wrestling. This match had really almost everything for any kind of wrestling fan to enjoy. And what was great was the company was like just about to start running on Spike TV, less than a month away. So they had to put on a kick-ass show, and for the most part, I think they did. Well, folks, that's going to do it for my review of Unbreakable. I hope you enjoyed this review, and I hope I put TNA in a positive light for a change on this channel. Thanks once again to Phil and Daniel on Patreon for nominating this show for me to review. If you want to play a role in determining what classic shows I review in the future, be they good, bad, or somewhere in between, go to patreon.com/wrestlingwithwregret, become a $10 backer or above, and you'll have the chance to nominate shows for me to review in the future. Next time on the classic review segment, you know what? For the last few installments, I've been reviewing objectively good shows. I kind of want to cleanse my palate a bit and just review a total stinker. I want to review something that's really bad and infamous. So let's just do WCW Bash at the Beach 2000. I'm Brian Zane, and I'll see you next time.